So this video is about the coronavirus, since there have been growing number of coronavirus cases in countries like in the United States and other European countries and all across the globe. But it seems like that there are about two countries, two leading countries that are fighting against the coronavirus cases. And I'm talking about Cuba and Vietnam. And it seems like they are one of the few countries that has done a good job on handling the coronavirus. They think that the world really needs to learn from these two countries and how they handled the coronavirus pretty well, because I think that based on the links that I will send on the description below, I think this is a thing that they should learn from the pandemic response of these two countries. Let's go to Vietnam. Now, if you have looked on the statistics of the cases and deaths of coronavirus in Vietnam, it's unbelievable. But I would really think that it's true that they have a good pandemic response and they have a good quarantine that keeps people safe even though they're infected. If you've been listening to the news or outlets, you've seen that a country of 97 million, there are less than 300 cases with 0 deaths. Unbelievable, isn't it? So they, even for foreigners and tourists, they make sure to keep them safe and keep them from being infected with COVID. And the government has also a good pandemic response, not to mention the fact that they're just in the northern border of China, where the coronavirus cases started. Now, from news articles that I've been seeing, is that they have they did an immediate response when the coronavirus in Wuhan broke out, and they responded quickly, which the articles you will see in the description below. I think that this is one of the things that countries like in North America, Europe, the Americas, and the Australian continent, I think can, even though the New Zealand has also quite of a good response team, but I think particularly North America and other European countries and other countries in the American continent and elsewhere can learn from Vietnam and how they did a good job in containing the infections of the coronavirus. In spite of the comments coming from anti-government Vietnamese and coming from anti-socialist, anti-communist Vietnamese, accusing the Vietnamese government of cover-up and repression, that they're just hiding the numbers. I think the fact that still that the Vietnamese government has done a good job to help its citizens and others like foreigners and tourists to keep them safe and to keep them quarantined in case of any COVID infections. Now, I think is that there's a famous Vietnamese YouTuber who goes by the name Luna Oi, and she shares infos on how the government has done a good job on handling the coronavirus, and how she is debunking lies that the anti-government Vietnamese are spreading black propaganda that the government is very abusive and they're just covering up. But still, Vietnam has done a good job in handling the coronavirus case. You can just watch her videos about the coronavirus on the description below. So now let's go to Cuba. Now, there had been a lot of news articles that uh, Cuba has sent a lot of its doctors and nurses to fight the coronavirus pandemic. So as you see, most of them had traveled to Italy to help contain the coronavirus and help its citizens recover from the infection. And they've also done a good job in also handling coronavirus cases also in their country. And they also have been known for having a great healthcare system, even though that they don't have a good socio-economic system. They don't have that much of political freedom, but they have a great education and healthcare system to help the Cubans be educated and be aware of, and to become professional healthcare workers, which Cuban doctors and nurses are also one of the best healthcare professionals behind Asian countries like India, Philippines, just to name a few. So there had been news articles from various media outlets. That's something that is never covered by mainstream news articles, neither from it's not exposed from American media outlets, but it seems that they took an effect, and it seems to be done a good job with their anti-cancer uh, treat, treatment, which is the interferon alpha 2b recombinant, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So there has been proof that this uh, this vaccine or this treatment can be is the possible cure for the coronavirus. And because of the embargo and sanctions from other countries, this kind of medicine cannot be exposed anywhere, or it cannot be delivered anywhere, even right here in the United States, because of the blockade. I mean, not blockade, but like the administration is not telling more about this medicine, even though like the President Trump has proclaimed that this hydroxychloroquine could be the possible cure, but even though it hasn't been proved, or it hasn't been proven that it works, and it doesn't even work, the hydroxychloroquine. And there was one person who was not an anti-malaria or anti-dengue who ended up taking the hydroxychloroquine but ended up dying because he wasn't infected by it, because he believed this speeches by this crazy president. I will send articles in the description below for proof, but what I can tell you is that like Cuba has also done a good job on its fight against coronavirus. So when we hear things about like Trump saying that like we're not going to do business with Cuba, or you hear State Secretary Mike Pompeo say these things like that, it's like saying that it's like saying that, oh, let's not do business with those other countries that are helping the poor, because it's not good for diplomatic relations, while they do relations with other dictatorships like Turkey and Saudi Arabia, to name a few. And to say things like that about Cuba for its human rights violations, it's just a total bigotry, because when we see countries like Saudi Arabia and Turkey, as I just named a few like earlier, it's just pure hypocrisy and it's pure bigotry. And I think that, like, what this coronavirus is actually a blessing in disguise, because it's time that I think that in countries like United States and my beloved where my parents are from, Philippines, should learn from these two countries on how they um, fought well with the pandemic. So to conclude this video, I will just say that in case if no one knew that Vietnam was the first country to contain itself the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS to be specific, and that is why I think Vietnam has also done a good job to contain the coronavirus, which is why there are minimum casualties or no casualties on the infections. So to Vietnam and Cuba, keep fighting the good fight. Keep fighting against the pandemic and propaganda and lies that are being spread across just to discredit your two countries, because they're envious and jealous that these two countries, you, Vietnam and Cuba, are doing a good job to fight this deadly virus.